Recently, I was watching one of my favorite keto doctors, and I clicked on the video because they were talking about alcohol, and I was hoping to get some information that would clarify or back up some of the things that I typically say. Like, for example, I talk about the fact that only the liver metabolizes alcohol. Recently, I learned that our brain does metabolize a little bit, which is what causes that tipsy feeling that we have. So that was interesting for me. And I was really hoping that this doctor was going to say something to give more clarity about drinking and health and possibly how it impacts your keto lifestyle. In order to be fair, I'm going to talk first about the things that I learned from this doctor in this video that I didn't know before because, again, one of my favorite doctors, and I was super excited to gather some new information. So I learned that ethanol is the intoxicating agent in alcohol. Now, when I hear ethanol, what I was thinking about was gasoline. So I had to look it up to make sure that I heard her right. And yes, ethanol is a chemical solvent that you find in gasoline and that's used in chemical production of other things. The second thing that I learned was that ethanol doesn't cause a spike in insulin. The third thing that she said that blew my mind, and I'm not sure how I didn't know this, is that alcohol, so ethanol, has 7 calories associated to it per gram. So that since there's 14 grams in a serving of alcohol, that means that a glass of wine has 98 calories coming from alcohol. Now, I was really happy to see that in the video, my understanding that alcohol is more toxic than sugar was verified, and that alcohol is processed before any food nutrients first because it is toxic, and then our body would process sugar next because it is also toxic, followed by protein and fat. There were 3 points of confusion for me though, where I became frustrated with this video because, as you'll see, things were not adding up. The first point of confusion for me was after stating that alcohol is a known toxin, that the body cannot store it for later use, and therefore the breakdown of alcohol is to neutralize it and to eliminate it from the body. The doctor went forward to say that the reason that we shouldn't look at drinking hard liquor as a better keto version of a drink to have is because it still gives 7 calories per gram. And I was confused there because after hearing that, what it made me think was, well, what does happen to the alcohol when it's in our body? A little bit of research online led me to understand that our body can process 1 serving of alcohol per hour. So that's 1 glass of wine, 1 beer, 1 shot per hour. But what happens if I drink more than a glass in an hour? What happens to the rest of that alcohol? Well, then according to what I read, the rest of the alcohol would be able to get to my heart, my liver, eventually my brain, causing problems. It seems to me that it would have made more sense for the doctor to say that the reason we shouldn't be drinking alcohol is because it's actually toxic to the body. I would have liked to see that we focus on the toxin rather than the calorie count, because this idea of focusing on the calorie count continues to let us believe that as long as we get our calorie number low enough, then the thing that we're eating isn't the problem. And in this case, the thing we're talking about is ethanol, which is actually toxic to the body. And it's not the kind of toxic where you say, well, but it's in healthy foods. It really isn't. It's in nothing healthy that you're going to find. Another point of confusion that I had was that in the research that was shown, it was reported that alcohol and sugar taken together led to an acute insulin resistance reaction. And then your body will compensate by hyper secreting insulin. What I want us to think about is when we go out and we have a drink, even if we order a hard drink, as long as we eat anything with sugar in it, our body's still going to have the reaction. In the experiment that was discussed, the person was injected with the ethanol but had eaten carbs. So unless when you go out, you're only going to have that one hard drink and you're not going to eat anything around it in the hour or 2 surrounding it, you still risk having that acute insulin resistance reaction and your body reacting by secreting more insulin. Now, the other problem that I had, and Wellness Warriors, this is one that I've talked about repeatedly, that we need to double check our sources, and we need to make sure that when someone's presenting information, that we fact check it and we make sure that more than one doctor is saying the same thing to really be certain that the information we're getting is accurate. So there was a study that had a good number of women in it. It was over 19,000 people. And the doctor was going through the results and said that alcohol led to less weight gain and a lower risk of obesity. But then when I actually looked up the study, because I was like impressed by that, and it was a study that was not funded by a big corporation in the alcohol world, there were two things that were really important that I noticed. First of all, it was a survey study. Basically, a survey means you fill out a document where they ask you, how much did you drink this weekend? You try to remember, or how much and it was done over a long period of time, 12 plus years. There were 8 different occasions where these women were asked to report on how much they'd been drinking. But you're thinking, and you're trying to remember back over the last year, how much did I drink? So first of all, but second of all, it's a survey study, so there cannot be conclusions of causation. There can only be associations made. And when you read the wording of the study, it said that that ladies who were light to moderate drinkers experienced less weight gain. They said it seems like light to moderate wine drinking may be more likely to protect, which is not a causal statement. The words matter. When we read scientific papers, the way they write that conclusion and the words they choose, if they said led to, if they said caused, that means they're saying there's a direct relationship here, A caused B. But when they say things like may be linked to or experienced something, that doesn't mean it caused it. In the end, after reading the articles myself, I wanted to make this video because I want to remind everybody to challenge the things that we're told, especially if they're not making sense. We've been told so many times by doctors that drinking has harmful side effects. We've been told so many times by doctors that drinking causes fatty liver disease. Our experience with people in our world has shown us that people who drink a lot do tend to have distended stomachs. That's a thing that we see in our everyday. We don't have to look far for that. I want you, when things don't make sense, to challenge it. I had to read a lot of articles and watch a lot of videos to truly understand what was happening with my hip at the beginning of my keto journey. To really understand that what I was eating was causing the excruciating pain that I was living, and that my sugar intake was too high. And it was showing itself, it had been showing itself in my knees and my elbows and my back, and now finally my hip at an excruciating level. I needed to convince myself, because it was against everything that I had ever understood about what was healthy when it came to food. But the more that I read and the more doctors that I listened to, it showed me that there was reality here. Now, what's really hard is that I understand that doctors, they want us to do things in a healthy way, but they also, for some reason, don't believe that if they just tell us, look, this is what you need to do, or your health is going to be in trouble, that we would hear them and react appropriately. And maybe it's because we've watched people who smoked even when their health was at risk. We've watched people who've drank even when their health was at risk. And maybe there's this idea that I need to give you a workaround. I need to give you an out, or I need to give you a reason that you're going to be okay with. But I think the best reason to give me is the truth. If eating too much sugar is what's causing my hip pain, tell me. If drinking alcohol is delaying the processing of the sugar and therefore causing more problems in my body, tell me. And that's the part that's frustrating. That wasn't one of the reasons that was given for why we shouldn't be drinking. That when you drink, it delays the processing, which it's stated, but not stated in this way. Obviously, if my body is processing alcohol first, these things are waiting. That means that sugar is floating around in my system doing damage. We're not talking about the fact that the time it takes to process the alcohol and then process the sugar, my body isn't getting the benefit of the fats and proteins that I actually ate that could have been building and healing me. Please do not take my word for it, Wellness Warrior. When you are given information that doesn't seem to make sense, especially if in the same article or the same video, you're giving one piece of information here that contradicts something that's said just a few minutes later, look it up. Do your research. Find out what's real. Because at the end of the day, it's your health that's on the line. But if you're still trying to figure out if drinking alcohol when you're doing keto is a good idea, watch this video that I have on the screen right here. Since you're still listening, you might as well hit that like button before you go. And if you'd like to know when I go live, subscribe and ring the bell so that YouTube will send you a notification. I love making these videos for you, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next Thursday.